Well, welcome to another episode of SaaS TV. I'm here at Salesforce.com in San Francisco, and with me is Asim Jalis. He's a lead member of the technical staff here. And we're going to talk a little bit about the Salesforce view of software as a service. If you want to start out, Asim, by telling us a little bit about what Salesforce does and what you do as part of the team.
Sure, yeah. So Salesforce provides a cloud computing platform that business applications can be developed on and that execute on. And then it started out as a sales automation software company, but then they've abstracted it out. So now it's like a generic platform that you can develop any kind of enterprise app. And so it has a lot of features that make it easier for enterprise customers to store all their data without worrying about unauthorized access to it. And
so what's interesting about that, from my point of view, and the cloud computing standpoint, is you have a number of customers who are trusting you with probably their most valuable data, which is sensitive business data, in many cases about their customers.
That's right.
So how does that impact the way that you guys handle operations, and what's the impact of that on what makes it easier or harder, given that you have these mutually untrusting customers?
Right. So yes, it's certainly. I mean, customers trust us with a lot of their very critical business critical information, and so one of the impacts that has is that in the applications that we develop internally are, once we develop the application and it goes off and runs on the production servers, in some ways there's a wall between development and operations, and we're not allowed to, for example, we can't just go through the logs or make queries on the database. Everything is gated through these operations admins, and so we have to submit requests. They review them, and then they'll execute a query. And sometimes the turnaround time on these things is terrible as well. So like it might take a day before we get debugging logs or we get debugging queries back.
So unlike when I'm developing my app on my own machine, I can sort of do any kind of debugging I want. I can look in the database. I can put in instrumentation to log arbitrary things. But because of the sensitivity of these customers' data, you can't just do the monitoring that you need to do extensively, even if it's in the service of fixing a problem that a customer might be seeing.
That's correct, yeah.
So how do you deal with this? What kind of things do you do in development or pre-production, given that once you're in production, you have limited visibility? How do you handle working on the development version so that you can...
Right. So I think part of, what this forces us to do is just because we know this is when we're working on a product, we know this is what's going to happen once it goes into production, which is that we won't be able to actually see what's going on. So we instrument the code a lot more, and I think we spend a lot more time designing and baking in metrics and dashboards that we can see. So for example, like a lot of times, some of the applications that I work on can take a long time in production, and so we want to see progress, like what's actually going on, and so we build these dashboards that tell us.
So it sounds like that's another interesting difference, I guess, in software as a service, is because customers are deploying these apps with huge data sets. The customer can actually initiate operations that could take hours or days to run. So it sounds like part of what you're doing is trying to give them some visibility so that they know it's not their problem if something is taking a long time. And
exactly, yeah, definitely. So I think with most shrink wrap software, the applications tend to be a lot more interactive, and usually the customer just pushes a button and expects a response quickly. But with our data sets, customers are basically deploying large data sets into the cloud, and so it can take a long time to run some of these operations. And so by building in these metrics dashboards, I think it kind of helps the customer as well, because they are able to, once we design them, then we can expose them to the customers, and they can see. So for example, if a process takes several days to run, then they can see exactly where it is, and so it gives them reassurance that.
Okay, we are back here with Asim Jalis. Because of some minor AV difficulties, we had to do the second part of this as a Skype call, so thanks for joining us again, Asim. And I think when we got cut off in our conversation, The last question I wanted to ask you about was, Salesforce was the original SaaS company, and it was a very glamorous startup. Now it's obviously larger; it's a more mature company. And I was wondering, since you've been at a couple of large software companies as well, how does the atmosphere and the culture compare, and how does that affect your ability to work in that organization?
Right. So I think the culture is definitely. I mean, there are things I've noticed in the culture that are definitely different. I think one thing I've noticed is that the organization is a lot flatter, and I think that part of that might just be its startup roots. That it's not. I mean, it was a startup not too long ago, but I think part of it is also just the fact that all the code that we write all kind of lives in the cloud together. So we have to. So everyone is forced to kind of be considerate of everyone else, and all the code is on a sort of on a level playing field with all the other systems. So there's no real. It's not quite as hierarchical as like a shrink wrap company where you might have different products and maybe
different business units
differently. Yeah.
So there's a sense of shared fate. Kind of all of the products have to work together, and they're all part of the same customer visible deploy. So.
Right.
Good. Well, so thanks again for joining us, and sorry we got cut off before. I'm sure Salesforce is always looking for talented engineers interested in SaaS. So thanks very much. This has been Asim Jalis on SaaS TV.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we're definitely interested in any engineers that you get in touch with. Please send them our way.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard it. Thanks, Asim, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Armando.